Explorer podcast. This is the podcast where every week we take a random prompt and build an entire world around it. My name is Casey, and I'm joined with Isaac.
Hello there. Today we have a prompt for the world where there once were gods that ruled this world. They brought magic to this world, gave the magic to people, but then they left one day. Don't know why. We'll figure that out later. And now the thing is, when they were first in the world, they were giving magic to people constantly. They were the source of all magic. But now that they're gone, the world's magic is finite. There's only so much of it left. And I had this idea of like multiple different forms that the magic could come in. And I was thinking that it could come in the form of spells, which would be written down in books, but once you use a spell, it's gone. And another form would be maybe something like blades. You know, the classic magical sword that might have several uses, but the magic fades over time. So, what are your thoughts on this?
So book-wise, I guess it's pretty simple. You say the spell and it's like magic dust comes off the book and goes and does the spell and it's gone.
Yes. Like the words written down in the book are themselves magic. The ink that they're made of and stuff, they just turn to dust. Maybe they fly off and they form whatever it is that you're trying to do. Like maybe the ink flies off and turns to dust and forms a portal. Or maybe it pulls a sword out of the book. Or
Anything you need it to do.
anything you need it to do, whatever the spell is.
Yeah. And I guess for the weapons, it probably makes more sense that it loses magic as it's used instead of over time.
Otherwise, all the books would do the same thing.
Well, I don't think the books would lose it unless it's used, but like
Oh, yeah.
weapons should be the same as the books. Otherwise, all your weapons stop being magical around the same time.
Yeah. So it should be based on how much you use it, and not just slowly over time it loses its potency. So it would be like this laser sword has 3 uses, and then it's done.
Would you know that for weapons, though? Like, obviously for the book you know, because you use it once and it fades away, but do you actually know how many uses a weapon has?
I think it's more interesting to not know.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if people might be going into battle or something, like, yeah, this weapon, it could either turn the tide of the war and give us a massive advantage, or we could end up using it only once and be left completely vulnerable.
Yeah, I think that's more interesting. And then it makes it, I guess, people less willing to use it unless it's a drastic situation.
Yeah. And maybe there would be some methods of figuring out how much magic is left. Maybe there's even a spell out there that can tell you how much is left.
I was about to say, it's a magic spell book, but of course, the moment you use that spell, it's gone, so you can
Yep.
only use it once.
You can figure out which one item has limited magic, or you can figure out the limitations of one item, and that's it.
That's so sad. That's so sad.
Unless you can find multiple of that same spell, which I'd say you should be able to do.
I mean, depends what timeline we're in.
Yeah, it depends how long ago the gods left. Because let's think about this. Like, or if the gods they decide to leave for whatever reason, they're no longer giving magic to the world. What's gonna happen is immediately everyone is going to be rushing to get their hands on magic. Just constantly.
Well, I guess that depends if they knew, though. Like, if they knew that the gods, were leaving. Like, if the gods announced they were leaving, then obviously they would know and instantly start conserving. But if they don't know, and the gods kind of just disappeared one day, they might assume, oh, especially if this is something they've done before and they've always come back, they might be assuming, oh, they're going to come back. They're not going to be as lenient with the magic, which means you have a world where there's even less magic because they were using it up before they realized, oh, wait, they're not coming back.
I think maybe where we should start with this world is figure out who these gods are, what they're doing, why they're leaving. Is this a matter of they got bored with the world that they had. Maybe what happened was they started off serving um they started off giving all the like these gifts, the gift of magic uh to people, and then they said, you have turned us into servants, where all we do now is give you magic,
Mm,
and we are and maybe they say you've become ungrateful as well. um you feel entitled to this magic, therefore you will no longer have any, and we're going to go off and build a new world, uh hopefully with people that appreciate us more and won't just see us as gumball machines.
gumball machine.
And so they, yes, yep. And so they leave to go create a new world.
Yeah, I mean that's a perfectly valid reason. In which case they would have. I feel like they would have announced it then.
Yeah, I feel like they would have explained why they are leaving.
Yeah, they want the people to understand fully what they've done wrong and why they're leaving. So that means we are in a world where it makes sense that there's actually quite a few magical objects left. Because the moment that happens, I'm sure governments jumped into action and started snatching up as much as they could to store for safety, for emergency use only, as governments do.
What time period are you thinking? Because I was thinking like medieval, because of course I was.
Okay, so monarchy started snatching up magical items to store for emergency use, as monarchs do. I don't care whose hierarchy it is.
Well, I care because the time period would determine just how much control they're more likely to have over the population, and know like where they are, what they've got. Because if we're talking like
That's true.
modern day, they're gonna be able to find and apprehend like more magic more easily. And if we're talking very futuristic, well, then they're gonna get like all of it.
Yeah. But if it's medieval, I mean, they're probably still gonna get a good chunk of it.
Yeah, they if they like storm houses and find them hidden away, they can take it. But there's still gonna be people who manage to hide it like under the floors or in the woods or bury it or something.
I think that's a more interesting story, though, is like government has a good 2/3 of the magic items, but 1/3 of it is still around in the locals that keep it hidden. And if they expose that they have these objects, they'll get arrested or fined or, I don't know, executed.
And the reason that the government holds on to all of this magic is for their protections in case some invading force comes to attack them.
Exactly. Don't worry about like the mind control book spells or the other spells that might destroy a kingdom or make it so that you guys can't question a ruler's authority. Like, don't worry about the fact that we're also collecting that magic.
Yep.
The government would never want to hurt you.
Now, would the government ever release spells or magic items to the public for any sort of reason? Like maybe there would be something like there's construction going on, and they're like, "Oh, here we will issue out a spell or sell a spell to a construction worker that summons a wall or helps levitate bricks. You can place them where you need faster."
So you've seen like the magic story, the Minecraft story mode game, right?
Yes, but it's been a while.
Well, there's a section where there's like the creative block, which is this magical thing that lets people build creative, and it's in this kingdom, but it's a skyblock island, so there's very limited space. It's a little different, but they have, and it's very kind of medieval setting, like futuristic medieval, and everyone has to go through all of this paperwork to file to get to use the creative blocks so they can have a space to use it and do it because it's so limited.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Well, it was in the like second or third portion, like, or even maybe even the last portion that came out, but
Anyway,
and it's you only get there if you go a very specific path. Do you find that?
yeah, it was a choose your own adventure sort of scenario.
Yeah. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, Minecraft did a choose your own adventure story. It was really good, but then they canceled it.
I played the Netflix version. Anyway, so are we going with the idea then that they do issue out spells to people on occasion?
I think so, but they have to go through the right people and stuff to get it approved.
Yeah, they have to know like who you are, what you're doing with a spell.
And it has to be like a very good situation because then the spell's gone.
Okay, so immediately, story idea, heist. The,
Stealing spells.
stealing, not just stealing spells, stealing all of the spells. Actually, you know what? No, better idea. Story is guy wants to go and steal a specific spell for a specific reason. But then, so that's what we're told. That's the promise. That's the setup for the story. But then, the actual payoff is not only he gets that spell that he wants, but he also decides to free the kingdom from tyranny by releasing all of the spells to the people.
You know the new Disney animated movie?
Wish.
Yeah, that is the entire premise of that movie.
I haven't seen it, and I have been avoiding spoilers, and I just recreated the entire premise of that movie. Go and release all the wishes, I assume. Give everybody a wish.
Yeah. Give
Ah.
everybody their wish. Yeah, a wish back. Yeah, it's pretty much the entire premise of that movie.
You know what? I think it's still a good premise, still a good idea. Let's go with it. That's the story.
Oh, and I'm sure we could do better than The Wish did, which had a lot of not so great things.
I, again, haven't seen it, so I can't say, but you know what? I'm sure we can. Yeah, Disney's not that hard to top anymore.
Sadly. I miss good entertainment.
Okay, I feel like if we're going to go with this story, we need to figure out what is the one thing that this main character wants. Like, what specific spell is he looking for?
Well, if we want to rip up a different movie, we could go with, like, bringing someone back from the dead.
You want to rip off of another movie where the world filled with magic is very limited in terms of what and how much magic they have.
To be fair, it was a good movie. That one might be
It
a
was
little
a
harder
good
to top.
movie.
Maybe we shouldn't go there. It's a really good movie. I'm not sure if we could top that one. For those who don't know what movie we're talking about the Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out last year.
Is that the movie you were talking about? I was
Yeah.
thinking Onward.
You're thinking Onward?
Yeah, bringing someone back from the
Yeah.
dead. They bring back their father back from the dead so that they could spend a day with him in a
No,
world
I was
that's
talking
limited.
about the one where it was a literal heist to steal an object that would bring someone back from the dead. I didn't realize we were thinking two different movies.
We were thinking two different movies somehow. Man, tropes get reused a lot.
Yeah, that's funny though. No, I was thinking the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Yeah, you were sitting there like the Dungeons and Dragons movie. I'm like, what? No, I'm thinking Onward.
I genuinely thought we were on the same page. My bad. Well, so apparently do we want to steal from the trope of apparently two pretty popular movies and have them trying to steal an object that would bring someone back from the dead?
I'm going to say, I don't know. Now it feels so unoriginal.
I don't know, but I feel like a really big like plot point though could be like he gets there and he gets the spell book and he opens it up and realizes it's already been used, and then you have the king coming out and being like and saying like, how do you think I've lived so long, and then you have just one of those dramatic movie moments instead.
Okay, what if, hear me out, instead of bringing someone back from the dead, we've got the classic, this is a young young protagonist, maybe 17 years old, 16, 17, maybe even 15, whose parents are dead, but he has a sister, and the sister has fallen ill, and she is going to die, and so he's going to go and get a spell to save her life. And maybe he even tries to get it legally, like just go to the government and say, hey, can I have the spell? And they say, no, you can't. And it's because the king wants to keep all of these spells for himself to keep himself alive. And so then he goes to steal the spells and finds out they've all been removed from the book. Not necessarily used, but removed from the book. And they're hidden elsewhere in the castle. In maybe in some specific location. Maybe they're hidden in a secret compartment in his throne.
Ooh.
And so they have to figure that.
So now he
has to go and not just get past, some the guards to go and into the dungeon or wherever they're being held in a secret vault. But no, now he's got to get to the king himself, past his very heavily armed and trained guards, and then get it to his throne and steal the the spells, then get away.
We could take some real like inspiration from Wish and have the guy try to become like an attendant to the king or something, or a close correspondence in that. And he could be doing it under the premise that he eventually wants to work enough to earn the spell for his sister. But in reality, he's just, the moment he has a chance to steal it, he's going to take it and run.
Yeah, and which I think is fine because he knows that the king is never going to give it up. Unless that's supposed to be like a twist. And you're not supposed to know that the king is using these spells to keep himself alive.
True. He just thinks he can have a bunch of free labor now.
Yeah, I think that's his idea.
But then, like, something happens and the sister gets a lot worse and he needs to speed it up and he begs the king. Maybe even going as far as to promise that he would serve the king faithfully for the rest of his life. He can save his sister. But that's when the king has to reveal that actually he's never going to give it up. And then he has a very bitter correspondent who has a good understanding of, like, the layout of the castle now and that stuff. And
Wait.
Can sneak his way around and figure
What
it out.
What if when he goes to he goes to ask the king, hey, I need the spell now or she's going to die, and he says no, in an effort to get the spell from him, he actually attacks the king and tries to kill him, and he severely wounds him, and then the king uses the spell on himself, and that's when maybe he understands why the king wouldn't give it up. And of course, there's more of this spell.
Yeah.
That he's just got to go and get another one that the king's got laying around somewhere. And maybe the king even like de-ages a little bit when he gets it.
So it's like trying to keep him young for as long as humanly possible.
Yep.
Magically possible.
Yep, it's both a fountain of youth and a fountain of healing.
Ooh.
But I'm just sitting here wondering, like, I don't know how well that could work as a twist though. If like we're too,
I think it's pretty obvious.
It's too obvious because earlier on, if we're told, oh yeah, the king has been ruling for 100 years or whatever, and still going strong, it's pretty obvious what he's doing.
Yeah.
I don't see how you can make that into a satisfying twist.
We just gotta go full classic Disney villain.
I mean, do you think that? I don't know if this would help the story or hurt the story. You think that it would work if the main character started to genuinely become close with the king, and the king really became fond of him?
I think like an interesting dynamic, which is something that Wish should have focused more on to be a better movie, to be honest. But like something that we could take their failures and use it to save the story, is dwelling on the fact that the king is good about giving out like other wishes for the betterment of the kingdom. Like if you make the king a genuinely good king and a really good ruler who like the people like love and respect and is doing a good job, but like the one dark side he has is that he wants to be able to do that good for as long as possible, and so he stores like these eternal life things so that way he can keep it up for, maybe he has a calculation for how long he can rule, so he can, and he genuinely believes he's doing this for the betterment of everyone, and that his life has more value than like this person's sister's life, because his life, he has the ability to change the world for the better.
I mean, in a way, he kind of does, because if he can save more lives by keeping himself alive, it does make sense. But at the core of it, the point is that at the core of it, it wouldn't be him keeping himself alive just to make the world better. It would be also rooted in selfishness and just not wanting to die.
Yeah, but that's always like the most interesting thing, is like when the selfish thing is also can be shared as selfless, and you can convince someone that's actually a selfless act.
Yeah, you just gotta make sure you're putting in some sort of scenario where you're gonna be able to get another king in place after him that will rule the kingdom properly. But no, then again, this doesn't work, because we're stepping away from the original story premise idea, which is a heist where he's going and freeing all the spells and giving them to people. So we would need an idea where where he does want control, and that's why he's taking all of these spells.
We're literally hitting the issue with the movie Wish.
This entire episode is just us dunking on Wish, even though I've never even seen it.
But that's like the whole promise of the movie, and like the thing that struggles with is this like this king is hoarding all of these wishes, but at the same time he's created a utopia because of it. But then the movie never really dives into any of that, and it's pretty shallow and one-dimensional in its portrayal of this pretty complex idea, and people didn't appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that because again, because this is a heist where he's stealing all of the spells, we do need him to be kind of a tyrannical king who wants control. Because otherwise, it's like, why doesn't he allow the people access to magic? Like, you could maybe say because he believes he can tell people when to use magic and where to use it most efficiently. I guess that's true. Like, we could go that route.
I think at I think at the end of the day, there's two paths we can take. There's one where we have like the clearly evil, hungry, power wanting king who hoards all the magic because he wants to use it himself, and that's just that. And he's a pure villain. That's just how it is. Or you have the king who's actually a pretty good king and is keeping all the magic because he can genuinely believes that he can divvy it out the best and safest way. Even though there's still selfish intents behind it, at the end he's still doing a lot of good for the kingdom. But I think what has to happen is that slowly, the main character who's working for the king has to realize that while the king believes he's being selfless in his act, he has to have evidence of how it's not actually him. Like, a lot of it is actually selfish, and that he's hoarding a lot of things that could do a lot more good. And there has to just be evidence and constant showing of, like, the king denying people magic for purely selfish reasons. To the point where this kid thinks, hey, actually, maybe it's best if we stop the ruler. And then you have to decide, does the ruler turn, like, full bad guy and try to stop everyone and take, like, more control? Or does the ruler have, like, a redemption arc where by the end of it he's helping give out even more magic? And is, like, changing the system to realize that, oh, I need, like, other people and advisors in place to make sure that the magic is getting divvied out, even if a selfish part of me wants to hold on to a magic. I need other people to keep me accountable so that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, that could work. There's definitely a few ways we could go with it. Something else that I was wondering about was, should we make it so that magic eventually can be renewed? Like, the gods decide to return at some point, or should we just leave it as the world is now without magic? Because as soon as the world regains access to magic and the government no longer has it, people are probably going to be using it a lot really quickly.
The thing is, I don't think the government can ever really lose control of the magic. Or if that does happen, if we go a route and then he gives it out to all the people freely, I do think that there's going to have to be in the story, the consequences of that is that the magic gets used up like that, because we're all very selfish people, and then there is no magic, and now they do have to live in a world without magic. And he has to deal with that consequences and, like, the regret of that. Like, maybe his sister gets sick again, and this time he can't save her because he doesn't have the magic spells
No,
anymore.
that's depressing.
Yeah, well, there are consequences to your actions. When you give a bunch of random people access to magical items and tell them use it wisely, majority of those people aren't going to use it wisely. Or you have the other option where the government, where, you know, the king has that change of heart and systems are expanded to give the people more say and more choice in how the magic is used. In which case, if his sister did get sick, he can then actually get help for her. But, I mean, even then, eventually magic runs out.
I do have another option in mind, which is there is a renewable source of magic that the gods had left behind, and maybe it's like some massive gemstones like kept deep in the castle somewhere.
Why is your first thought always gemstones?
Because gemstones They glow, they shiny, they pretty, and they are the universal symbol of magic.
Okay.
Plus I just like the crystal aesthetic a lot.
Yeah, I know, but it just you always go for a
Fine.
gemstone.
There's a magic pearl that they
What if
left
it's
behind. How's that? Maybe a magic flute that you play, and they create some magical items.
I prefer the pearl.
Okay, so there's a magic pearl that that is infused with the god's power, and it can renew magical items. So, like, if your sword's out of laser power or whatever, maybe you lay the sword on the pearl and it recharges it. And maybe you could do the same thing with spell books. My thought is, like, if we decide to make it where the world doesn't continuously have access to the world doesn't get access to the magic, you're still living in a rather boring world without magic, and you might end up still having a tyrannical king and stuff. But then if the world suddenly does have more access to magic, then you're in a situation where the world's going to quickly no longer have magic, and now it's boring, and now you've got things like people get sick again, and it causes a whole bunch of problems where people no longer have magic to solve the worst of their issues.
I think an interesting plot point with having this pearl is the fact that you can have the king never tells the people about the pearl.
That's what I was thinking.
So in the people's mind, there is a finite amount of magic, and the king has control of it all. But as this young boy finds out, is like working closely with the king and getting to know him, and all that, he learns about the pearl eventually, and that's when he realizes, oh, we could all have access to magic. Like, these books could be handed out to, like, trusted advisors of kingdoms, so that way, like, every kingdom has access to healing spells. These weapons could be handed out to, like, generals and stuff, so we have an army that can actually protect the kingdom at all times.
I think that maybe we could have a situation where the king, when the gods left, they left the pearl with the people. Like, this was like their final gift was this pearl, so that people at least had, like, some way of continuously getting magic. Because maybe what they did before was people asked for individual spells. They would say, "Can I specifically have a spell for this thing?" instead of getting a whole book filled with spells. And so this is where all the spells came from over time. Is someone specifically asked the gods for a spell or an item, and then as their final gift, they said, "So we won't leave you without magic completely. We will give you this pearl infused with our power." But when they did that, they gave it to the royal family, and expected the royal family to use it to continuously share magic with the kingdom and the world. But they kept it a secret from the world, and used it as a method of having unlimited magic, but tell everyone that there is limited magic, and use that as a method of controlling the population.
Yeah.
I think that would work really well.
Yes. And then the heist isn't about, like, getting all the spells, although I guess that would have to be part of it, but, like, the main goal is to get the pearl, or at least convince people that the pearl exists and is real, and then get a group together that's willing to steal it.
Yeah, I'm not even necessarily a group, but, like, maybe if he manages to steal some of the spells, and then gets maybe the kingdom or village to rise up and basically form an army of civilians to go in and steal this pearl, maybe even steal, like, everything else that was in there. I don't know. And now he could even arm them with spells that he managed to steal the first time around, because maybe the pearl is too big to get out of there, or maybe it's a fun, one of those fun situations where you break in, you sneak in, and then you find a spell that summons, like, a wagon being pulled by a magical rhino, and you load all the spells into the wagon and you break through the walls and you just take off.
I guess that's allowed.
Because here's the thing, once you're in there and you have access to all of these spells, there's a million different things you can do. And the thing is, because each spell is different, there's so many spells where what happened was people asked for a specific spell, and then the gods gave them that spell. You're going to have a very wide variety of spells, and they're probably not going to be organized. Or at least not.
You don't know. They might be alphabetized.
It might be, but even then, like, I just imagine people like quickly going through the books, trying to find some sort of spell to help them in a scenario where they're being chased by a bunch of guards, and then they use the most random of magic to fight with.
Definitely, but I also feel like that the king would have a trump card up his sleeve that he can use to stop them. Like either like a time freezing spell or a memory loss spell or something dramatic like that.
He's gonna have some sort of spell that he just keeps on him at all times. And it would probably be something massive. Like maybe there was a time where the kingdom was being invaded and he went to the gods and was like, hey, we're being invaded. We need a spell to fight back. And so it was something that was designed to take out an army. And it could be a
Yeah.
freezing spell or maybe a mass sleep spell, something like that. Now, I do have another question that could cause this whole thing to fall apart. Um, so once people use the spell, their thought is that it's only used once. Yeah, would they throw away like the paper or the book that they had or
Well,
the
here's
item
the
that they had?
thing that normal people who had it secretly probably would. They wouldn't weapons, most likely, because even like an unenchanted weapon is still a weapon.
Yeah.
But I could see them doing it with their spells, like normal people having it. Or maybe they keep it for, a few might keep it for like sentimental reasons. But at the end of the day, probably. But the king himself knows it's renewable, so all the spells that he sends out, like for building projects and stuff, he knows not to throw the paper and stuff away and to take it back.
Yeah, but wouldn't people become suspicious as to why he wants all this useless paper back?
So it's pretty simple when what you do is you have a guard stand there and or like a trusted official that it's his job to help hand out spells and the official does all of the spells for people. And then just keeps the paper, like tucks it back into his pocket. No one's gonna think twice about that.
That's true. So it's not the people using the spells. They're just enlisting the help of a guard or somebody to do the spells for
Well,
them.
it'd probably be someone a little more important, someone trusted enough to know about the pearl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could just call them mages. They are mages.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, yeah, there's gonna be some spells and stuff that are simply lost because people didn't keep them. That's just how this world works.
And the reasons the mages tell nobody about the renewable magic is because they like having power. They like being the like council of mages that have this power that no one else has. It makes them special. It gives them purpose.
But we're running low at time, so this might be a good spot to end it.
Okay, so we're done now.
Yeah.
Goodbye,
so we're
people.
gonna leave for. Well, okay. We could do I was before you.
Nope.
You just
Goodbye,
shut
everyone. Get
I
out
was
of
gonna say
here,
people-
folks. Get on out of here.
You done?
I'm done.
Can I say my piece now?
Yes.
Okay. So what I was gonna say is that the people who want to take this story on enjoy the fun challenge of trying to figure out how this kid and a group of villagers with can get out of the king's ultimate spell.
There's got to be some other random spell that they've got that's just so much fun.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of options. So it's but maybe leave in your comments what crazy spell you think they could use to stop the ultimate spell, because that'd be fun to read. But now you can say goodbye.
Get on out of here, folks. Bye.
Well, you can say it nicer. Alright, bye everyone. See you next week.